All right, welcome everybody. Today's the big day. It's Tuesday. I got Boots here with me. How's it going, man?
Hello. Good, how are you?
Yeah, not bad. I heard that there's a Mount Gate 2.0 is currently going on with this next balance of Boots, where there's another 15 RNG mount skins. Do you want to talk about that today?
Yeah, I think right in balance with Boots. No, we can't do that. This has to be reserved for a 4-hour-long video on your own channel.
No, I think they did it pretty well. Today there was a big patch, guys. It's got a few different things, including, yes, some new mounts. But we are here to talk about balance. Let's ready up, Boots. We're doing it here from the Hall of Mist, which is a map I'm sure a lot of you guys forgot exists.
I did not. Oh. I also forgot this existed, yeah.
Did you really? This is the 2v2 map that everyone begged for, but nobody uses because the terrain is a little bit...
Which is not the courtyard.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's 5v5, right? So I'll spectate here for people since we can't see it. We need 2 more people to actually get the match to begin. But yes, there's been balance, guys. Now, this balance is kind of a unique balance for the game because it is... I think it's a first. I genuinely think it's a first. We've seen over the past year the devs have more and more done skill splits, right? Where World versus World, PvE and PvP have had dedicated balance. Well, this time, quite specially, what have they done, Boots?
They've done mostly a skill split just for PvP and World vs. World. Actually, in this patch itself, they also have split things for just PvP and just World vs. World.
Yeah, so this is a patch dedicated to the competitive formats of the game. That might mean that a few of you tune out, but bear in mind, and the devs have officially said this, a lot of the changes you're going to hear about here today could then go into the other format as well. So if all you care about is PvE, there might even be something interesting for you here. But I think that's so good, dude. Dedicated balance just for this. Like, yeah. I think that implicitly signals some really great stuff to the competitively minded players in this game, that, like, they're valued and it's actually something that is being thought of first and foremost still. Like, a lot of people like criticize the devs and say, oh, they just think about raids, it's just raid benchmarks. Well, blatantly not if an entire patch is dedicated to those modes, right? Like,
exactly.
I think that's so good. So
as long as they hit the right points on it, though.
Absolutely, yeah. It has to be informed, it has to be intelligent, and it might be bad. The balance might be bad, but that's what we're about to dig in on. And it's a huge patch as well. I'd also describe this as kind of an undersold but over-delivered patch. When we first heard about this, the devs really weren't bigging it up too much. They were basically saying, yeah, there's going to be like some PvP balance. I think they referred to it as like a bonus balance patch, because
it kind of is still,
yeah, it wasn't too long ago, was it, that the other one came on, that we were last doing one of these, was it?
Yeah, this is still a bonus patch, I think, but I guess it doesn't feel like it if you're a main PvP and World vs. World player, because those are the things that are addressed very strongly in this.
Yeah, and also just look at the quantity. It's huge. There's tons of stuff that they've changed here, guys. Loads. So let's get into the meat of it. Let's talk a bit about what's going on. Let's start with some high-level things first. And that's... there was a change of amulets, wasn't there? Do you want to talk to people about this?
Yeah, sure. Well, they removed the Magi Amulet from PvP.
Yeah, there is no more... I don't think this is actually on the patch notes, but it is a change that's gone through. Yeah, so if you guys look here, you can only pick power main stat, precision, toughness, vitality, or condi now. There is no healing power whatsoever. We've seen slowly over the past year and a half, they've refined a lot of those defensive amulets away. And as we all know, the amulet defines a huge, direction for many of the builds. They've wanted to make sure the game remains deadly ever since that terrible Season 5 bunker Mesmer. Meta, and so healing power's gone.
However, I mean, you still have things like Mender's Amulet and Sage's Amulet that have as high as you could get.
Absolutely, yeah. So
I'm gonna get kicked.
There's still some 4-stat combos, right? So you can still play supports in PvP, okay? Don't misunderstand us. And you have 2 very solid options for... Actually, you've got 3 solid options. What's the other one? There's like 3 good options. Okay, Harrier is the other one. But whenever you pick these, you're going to be a little bit more squishy now. Okay, so I think what you'll see is a lot of people who were Magi's now are probably Mender's probably going to be the go-to, but you might see some other ones. And this just means that the raw support is going to be a little bit more to bully out. So there's 2 sides to this. Number 1 is just the strength of Firebrand, which is the main support in the game at the moment. And I think that what we'll find, Boots, is Firebrand's still going to be the top dog support. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Ideally, you want to do targeted nerfs at Firebrand to bring it down in line with the other support, so you get a bit of an option for those team fights. So, but this is going to hit all of them because it's an amulet change, right?
Yeah. So this is just the amulet change, though. But I think you looked at the Guardian changes as well. I don't know if there were some nerfs in there.
Yeah. So we'll get into those as well. But that's like a baseline thing. Tempest does get out of this as a healing thing. Tempest gets out of this as a support a bit better because they get more value off of the power that you get from Menders. So I don't know. Maybe they're slowly closing the gap between these things. And here's the other thing as well. One issue I've always had with Guild Wars 2 that other RPGs and Guild Wars 1 never struggled with, certainly, is when you play support, you also get tankier for yourself. Like, there's a thing in other games where it's like the healer is the guy you focus first because they're squishy. There's never really been truly great squishy healers in this game. Not necessarily just PvP perspective here, but it's like whenever you build healing power, it also heals you for more. So there's always like an innate tankiness that comes with that. And I think that removing main stat healing power amulets kind of addresses that in a weird way. So... Here in the editing, it sounds like I'm saying you would never target the Firebrand first in a team fight, which is obviously untrue. I was talking about broader perspective, how stat acquisition works and how that benefits supports, right? Talking more broadly about the game. So anyway...
Mender and Harrier, actually, right? There's no main or high healing power. Sage is only half healing power there.
Yeah, it's lower, right, on Sages. So basically, guys, this is going to ripple through the game. And what you'll hear on the grapevine right now nobody really knows, but what you hear on the grapevine is almost purely because of this Mender change and some other stuff we'll get into in a second. The game is going to get a lot deadlier, a lot more burst oriented, a lot more rotation heavy, and that could be more exciting to watch and hopefully more exciting to play. I've always enjoyed the faster paced games. Not that the game had actually slowed down combat wise. I think it's actually about on par right now.
Yeah, it's been pretty good.
But yeah, so there you go. That's Magi's. Another big baseline change was to do with automatic traits. Do you want to explain this to people, Boots? So, I'm going to get on Warrior to show this as you speak.
Yeah, Warrior is like the prime example in many cases. Automatic traits. There's a lot of traits in the game that activate automatically at like a certain health percentage or when something happens to you. And it's always been sort of like an annoyance to a lot of like skill-based players who really don't like the fact that there's no going around these things in many cases. And it's just they've basically what they're doing here is they're increasing the cooldowns on all of these things.
All of them. Like, this is no joke, guys. This is a big change, a ton of changes. So like, what do we got? It's in defense, right? Is like the true craziness. So warriors automatically ignore the first stun that comes at them, proc a balanced stance, start ignoring crits, start rolling stab on themselves, become immune to damage when they get below 50% health, right? Traits like this.
It's all the really annoying things when you're fighting against somebody.
Yeah, and there is counterplay. Now, don't get me wrong, okay? People who have been watching my second channel, you know this about me. I actually believe that Defy Pain, and a lot of these traits were in a reasonable place before, and I think that good players do know where they are and how to proc them early. But it's not always transparent when they're up, and without user interface changes to accommodate for that, I do believe in the longer cooldowns. I think the longer cooldowns are actually really cool, because it means more often people aren't going to be accidentally saved. That's the thing. People don't like people accidentally having their lives saved, right? So we'll see less warriors accidentally staying alive just because this cooldown came up. So the slightly longer cooldowns as well. For those of you who really loathe this stuff and you wanted it deleted from the game, I get you. But there's tons, right? Like, there's at least 20 to... well, maybe about 20 different traits have changed in this patch alone.
They'd have to come out with a lot of new traits if they remove these from the game.
So that's one side. But the other side is actually, you know, if Lesser Endure Pain now looks really naff, 2 seconds of invuln, you know, so rarely throughout the match, it pushes people into the other traits. And the second that juxtaposition looks a little bit better and someone clicks a different box, boom, you've essentially deleted it. Right.
It's true. For the longest time, these passive things have been like the automatic choices because they were so good. And now maybe they're not as good as some of the other traits on the same line.
Yeah, I mean, for the Defy Pain one's kind of funny because unless people start running Mace or something, this isn't a good juxtaposition at all. So there's different ways that the devs can nerf this, though, right? Like, if they make the choice look more lucrative in that slot, they can actually get rid of passives without touching the passives themselves at all. Right. But anyway, that's a whole other discussion. Generally speaking, I love this Boots. I think it's so good. One of the things that pushed me out of PvP for ages was the creep of all the passives. I don't know what the devs were thinking as that stuff made its way into the game. It's not particularly competitive. I think some builds and playstyles can lean on it a bit. and it's all right for the game. But I'm happy with this, and there's a ton, guys. Like Last Gasp for Necro even got hit. Loads of random ones you wouldn't have even thought of have been hit, like automatic CC reversals from Revs, Ellie on their Arcane Shield. There's tons of stuff, and that's kind of a baseline.
It does seem like not all of the like for instance the engineer ones, they're for PvP only. So these not all of them have been hit for World versus World.
Oh, right, yeah. So I haven't really paid too much attention to that, actually. Is there big differences between World versus World? I know that there are some junctures where that's split.
There's a lot of cases where they only hit PvP and not World versus World.
You're right, actually, Boots. Yeah, the original post. So there was a lot of supplementary information the devs gave about this, which was another really great sign as a balance patch, by the way, guys, that they're actually explaining their thinking. For the passives, yeah, you're right. Basically, in World versus Worlds, because of the giant Zerg-based crunches that can throw in, and it's less like micro... the passives are sort of more okay there, and perhaps even necessary there, so I think they left them. You're right, actually. I totally forgot about that, but I think the devs did comment on that.
Well, there you go.
So there you go. So that's the two. That guys really is the big stuff. A couple of other little changes. Surging runes have been removed from PvP. Do you know what surging runes do? Do you want to talk a bit about that, Boots?
When you use elite skill, you get a what's it called? One of those shocking auras.
Shocking aura, yeah. So
I'm doing it with my hands. You can't see it, but I was trying to show the shocking aura with my hands.
Shocking Aura is an interesting one. I think in a weird way this makes Tempest look a little bit more interesting just because it's one of the only places you'll viably get it. A lot of builds were running Surging Runes because it was so powerful. To be able to proc a Shocking Aura to stun someone into your 100 blades and get more value out of your Signet of Rage. To be able to do something to, you're in a Mesmer mirror to jaunt in their face to proc a Shocking Aura to interrupt their Blurred Frenzy and then kill them with a big shout. All these things were really cool. And it was active gameplay, but I think the reason they might have nerfed it is just because so many power builds, it was like so obvious to run Surging Runes. And I think they've just got rid of that. They've consolidated the Shocking Aura down. And so there you go. It's a change, and it will affect a lot of stuff because just so many builds used it. Maybe a bit more rune build diversity. I guess we'll see. Another thing, this one really excites me. What do we know about resurrection abilities, Boots? What's happening with all the res abilities? Almost every single one in the game this patch.
Well, all resurrection abilities are rarely used because the cooldown is so long.
Absolutely.
So what are they doing?
They are cutting the cooldowns of most res abilities massively. Like, hugely. Like, by half, I think. So here I've got Glyph of Renewal on my bar. This used to be like 180 second cooldown. 3 minutes to cool down. Now it's just a minute and a half. Like, it's huge. And there's, like, Signet of Mercy on the Guardian's change. Illusion of Life on the Mesmer. What do you think of that, Boots?
I think it's good. I think it's good because it's an active gameplay thing. It's an active gameplay thing, and it's something that, like, the fact that you can never really take them at all because it was such a long cooldown.
Absolutely.
It's a bunch of skills that were completely wasted.
To me, I'm really excited about this as well, right? And the reason why is because res skill counterplay is some of the most fun you can have in PvP, in my opinion. In the olden days where you'd nip off to headshot the nature spirit because you see its animation and it's going for a res, or you quickly retarget to interrupt a warrior in the middle of his war banner, that stuff was fun. That stuff was really obvious, good, interesting plays that were being made that swung team fights. It was fun, and none of these skills are really in use anymore.
So I think that it's good that this change is coming at the same time as they're taking away Magi.
Yeah.
Because what we don't want is a recreation of Season 1 where everybody's in a tanky build and resurrecting each other really fast.
That's an interesting proposal. Yeah, I see what you mean. You don't want to put too much res power in there. And what this does, interestingly as well, is it offloads the game more into rezzing through skills rather than rezzing through pressing F, I guess.
And it counteracts cleave entirely, which is nice.
Yeah, well, okay, so here's the thing. In practice, I don't know how much of this we will see, guys. For example, poison, still prevents these fully rezzing someone if they're too low and poisoned. And there's a lot more poison available to the game now since some of the earlier Condi changes, and just the accessibility is very different. So there's that working against it immediately. Yeah, there's some fun plays. Illusion of Life, actually, if they find the good balance with that, would be a really fun skill, would really shake up the scene. Illusion of Life, like, would be very fun if it was efficient enough. A lot of these skills I still think won't be as fun as it is to, like, Glyph of Renewal in Fire and then get an automatic res on yourself and stuff. Like, do people have space for these skills? I don't know. But here's the other problem with it right now. It's that there's one profession that does this extremely well anyway. Well, there's two. Druid does it very well, right, with search and rescues and stuff. Didn't even need the buff. But Necromancer, Transfusion, Well of Blood on res. These things are really strong and have actually been buffed out the bum by this, like, baseline chain.
And Necromancers are already pretty tanky as it is.
Yeah, so there was a bit of... People were just catching on to how good Blood Scourge was just before this patch. And ArenaNet have, I think, well overdone it with the Well of Blood buff. So there's a big Well of Blood buff. It's like 75% more potent on the heal and stuff now. I think that we're going to see a lot... If there are other Scourge nerfs, which there are, and, you know, the removal of Magi, meaning that Scourge might suffer a little bit more in team fights and stuff because it doesn't have such good support. If it suffers, it gains all of that back just because Blood Scourge is going to be extremely dominant. And I don't know whether, you know, Signet of Mercy on Guardian is going to be that huge. I don't know whether we'll see any Ellie's running Renewal Glyph.
So I see these things being used by people who know they're going to be alive longer than their teammates. So yes, a Necromancer, maybe a Mesmer if you're good at avoiding things. So basically, and that the thing is, you gotta see if it's gonna take over some other very good utility on your bar. Necromancer, I think it can. It really can.
Yeah, it depends how squeezed you are, definitely. But here's what's exciting to me. It's a trend in a direction, guys. That's the thing, right? Like, this is not the only balance patch that will ever come in, and they're trending in the direction where a lot more res potency, you know, they can keep shaving these things and tuning these things. And I like the direction of it. I really do, because, again, I think that counterplaying this kind of stuff is super fun. And I want that back. I really do. I really want that back. So, yeah, War Banner, for example, has had a big cooldown change. And people who like that in the past, you know, a little bit more within reach, a little bit. So that leaves us with another change, which is auto attack reductions. You got any thoughts on this, Boots? Did you notice that they're doing this?
I did not notice that. Oh, reduction of damage or reduction of time?
Reduction of damage. So just generally speaking,
I did see that.
Yeah, they're shaving the effectiveness of autos. So more of your damage.
Especially saw that in Thief.
Yeah, on Thief they've got that. Photon Forge on the Hollow, you need to actually land the later parts of the chain to get your damage in. I think wasn't some warrior autos nerfed down maybe? The Druid Staff auto was nerfed as well. Whenever you see Druid damage getting nerfed, by the way, it's a double dip because it hits their CA, and then that's their sustain as well. So there's little bits like that, but you know they're just really reshuffling a bit of that. And then finally, there's a bit of a change with elite skills. A couple of the elite abilities in the game, namely on Warrior is one of the cool ones. Ellie's the other. Do you want to talk about the Warrior one?
Yeah, well, Rampage. Rampage in PvP and Warframe's World no longer has a 180-second cooldown. It's a 90-second cooldown, cut in half.
Boom, that's another huge difference.
Yeah, they reduced the transform time from 15 to 10 seconds, but that still means that you have more uptime of the Rampage. And all of the skills got reduced cooldown on the Rampage as well, so that you could fit in more in the reduced amount of time that you have.
Yep.
So I like this. They've done this also to like Tornado and Elixir X and I think something else.
Signet of Stone on Druid had something similar as well, where basically all these really key cooldowns, they have way shorter cooldowns on them now, but they last less as long. Yeah, so just by a bit. And
I think that's really good for these transforms, just in my case, because I like to think about maybe now I could actually make a build around these things. Well, whereas before, since it was a 3-minute cooldown, I can't build around these transforms because you're not going to have it up most of the time.
Yeah, I think it's basically a buff, right? Even if they halved Rampage's duration and its cooldown, which they didn't. They didn't even half its duration, so it's like 33% shorter, but that's it, right? Even if they'd halved it, it still would have been a buff because it just means you get that rampage to throw that boulder and finish someone off, or get that crucial CC or whatever at the perfect time, right? More frequently than you did before. So absolutely, I really like it. It plays into peak performance as the trait and, all that kind of stuff. Just
and
better.
As a warrior, you never really want to be in rampage that long anyway.
No, you don't, because they'll see it and kite away from you or spam
kite
lines
away
or
from
whatever.
you, or like you're locked out of a lot of your other skills, so you might actually be easier to kill.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I mean, usually I like high impact, long cooldown elites, but in these situations, I like this change, and I think that this actually works fairly well, given what these abilities actually are. So yeah. There's another tiny little thing, by the way, globally, and that's that like a lot of team-based might stacking stuff seems to have been buffed, while solo might gain has been nerfed. So a lot of builds were getting too much might, so they've just cut that off from a ton of builds, okay? But when it comes to like stuff like Blood is Power, Full Great Justice, anything that pumps might on your allies, now are like obscenely strong. Like Blood is Power is like 16 might or something crazy AoE. So I kind of like this. It's almost like they're trying to put... You remember at launch where people would actually blast fire fields even in PvP before going on to push a mid-engagement or whatever? Nobody does that anymore. Nobody cares. There's too much solo might rolling around, accidental, incidental might. So by doing like this Blood is Powerful, Great Justice buff, if they keep trending in that direction, you might find we go into this world here where people sort of huddle together, not for a full blast session, but just to pop a couple of key cooldowns in the move. But a lot of the really greedy bad stuff, guys, is like Mesmer had a lot, has been nerfed. So should we get into the Ellie changes?
I think it's about time, yeah.
All right, okay, so why don't you talk about what you liked about Ellie, and I'll then talk about what I liked about Ellie.
Oh, I think we could all agree that the Shatterstone damage buff is...
Hell yeah, guys. Shatterstone, best scepter skill. Look at this. Oh,
66% buff.
It's actually hitting quite hard now. It's reading at 1,300 damage on the skill 2 now.
Shatterstone is like Axe on Necro.
Yes, it is. Yeah. The devs just keep buffing it. And it's like,
eventually someone will use it.
I think that this skill needs, I've said this many times, I think this skill needs vulnerability. More vuln. If this was like 15 vuln, I'd actually use that on a body, because that vuln equals a ton of cleave damage. It's 15% more damage on a down body for my entire team. That's major. But so I'd rather they improve the vuln on it, but hey, whatever. They'll just keep going the down.
Yeah, like kind of as a setup skill.
Yeah, like you just cast that on the body in the team fight, and then everybody goes ham on it afterwards.
Yeah.
Scepter Ellie really doesn't have great body cleave, so this would be a good skill to round that out. I don't know whether they're buffing it the right way, but there you go.
So I found another thing here, Pyromancer's Puissance.
Yeah, the Fire Grandmaster, right?
Yeah, so in PvP and War vs. World, it's instead of 1 stack for 15 seconds, it's 2 stacks for 10 seconds. And I think this is pretty strong now, actually.
Do you?
As a might stacking ability, yeah, it's very strong, because you'll get those... You could probably stack up 25 might quite easily for a nice burst, and like nowadays you don't really stick in fire that often, so you can stack up might more quickly now in fire, get out of it, and use it for other things.
Yeah, I think you just hit the nail on the head. I think that since Weaver's sort of become more of a go-to for a lot of people, fire is kind of trash, frankly, because like you don't get the value of a lot of its stuff. Because you're not in fire for very long. I think this Grandmaster fell into that trap, so this buff might be to try and counter that. Basically, it's a potency improvement, right? But I gotta be honest, Beast, I still don't think it's enough. I think you spend so little time in fire.
I think it's very good. I think it's very good for my Flame On build.
Oh, it might be good for the Flame On build. That's true. It may be good for that. Generally speaking, though, I don't see Sword Weavers taking fire or picking this up, unfortunately. Or Dagger Weavers. Which I may as well go into that. Did you notice that they're buffing the hell out of Weaver Dagger?
I did not notice that.
There's tons of patch changes.
Oh yeah.
To Dagger
but not
abilities.
Weaver Dagger necessarily, just Dagger in general.
Yeah, but then all the several of the Dagger mixes, skills which I've forgotten entirely about existing in the game. Have actually
I think it's because Sword kind of overshadowed it, right?
Yeah, so here's the thing, right? So yes, they've buffed Dagger. If you guys like the Dagger Weaver idea, if you're like, I've never seen anyone doing that. If you can't remember what any of those skills are like myself, you want a bit of a change of pace, maybe try out Dagger Weaver. But the thing is, Dagger Weaver needs, like, to have a distinct role apart from sword. Otherwise, it's just going to be that sword is better. And it's not going to sort of change. So I don't... I mean, I want to use Mudslide and stuff. I just don't think that the devs have made these two things distinct from one another. And, I'm not sure
like it's a little... I mean, Dagger is a little more mobile than Sword. So there is that. It is a little more... There's a lot of slides and stuff like that. The only thing is, I think the evade on the Sword is kind of like just counteracting that, though.
Oh yeah, you can go. So there are some slides. You're right, actually. Yeah, there's a few. And the sword, you get the air 2, basically.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I just think that these need to be a bit more distinct. I like the buffs, and I want to see these skills be used a bit more. So hey, there you go. But yeah.
There's a couple of weird things. Okay, so Plasma Beam, they reduced the damage by 20% in PvP and War vs. World. Was that a big problem in PvP and War vs. World, the damage that it was doing?
Yeah, so I can talk a lot about this because this is like my main build that I've been playing. So there was very targeted fresh air nerfs. Now, if you'd asked me what before this balance patch, hey WP, what does Ellie need? I would say that swords need slight buffs to compete with other side noders. I would say Dagger needs a distinct role. And I would say that Fresh Air Ellie, they need to be very careful of and possibly slightly nerf so that it doesn't become too powerful next patch. Because basically, with all the passive nerfs, guys, with the Magi removal and so on, if the game gets a lot deadlier, if Fresh Air Weaver it stayed the same as it was, which was kind of like a subpar-ish build, right? Not a great build, but an alright build, right? If it stayed as it was and it wasn't nerfed, it could have become too dominant. And I don't really think the gameplay that Fresh Air offers in terms of fighting against Fresh Air Ellies is that fun, so I would never want this to be too dominant of a build. So basically what I think's happened in this patch is they've seen that everything's getting a bit deadlier, so they're preemptively nerfing Fresh Air Weaver. They're nerfing the burst build, they're nerfing the Scepter capabilities so that it doesn't get out of hand too early. But, so that's what the Plasma Beam is, right? Plasma Beam is a huge burst, the mainstay burst for Fresh Air Weaver, and it's had a 20% reduction in potency, guys. 20%, that's a big nerf. The bigger one is Electric Discharge in air. Whenever you swap to air attunement, you strike someone, well, that has 28%
damage.
8% reduced, and that's a huge amount of the damage.
And you can't have your infinite distance attacks anymore.
Yeah, and they nerfed the bug that made it infinite distance. So, like, on a Fresh Air Weaver, guys, you dip out of air, and then you go air, out of air, for these electric discharges, and they're all a lot weaker now. So, the question is, did they go over the top with it? On paper, I actually think they might have, because Fresh Air wasn't actually that good. It looked good in capable hands, but I think it was sort of a win more build more than anything else. And yeah, so big nerfs there. I'm not too salty about it. I'm going to be playing Fresh Air a lot to see how it feels post-patch. Because again, with all the other tankiness going down, who knows where the meta will settle. Maybe this will still have a place. But it does feel pretty stinging, I've got to say. It does feel pretty stinging.
So, would you like to move on?
Yeah, so that's really all I had to say about Ellie as well.
I think, that's it.
Okay, cool.
We got it done.
I'll just start playing. Oh, by the way, so yeah, Tempest. I'm keen on Tempest as well. Tempest might bring something to the table. All right, so you want to do NG, do you?
I think that's next. Yeah.
Okay, take it away, Boots. What you got for us on the Engineer?
Okay, looks like at first there's a bunch of little bug fixes that are probably very good, because I remember hearing a lot of people complaining about the function gyro not working in a lot of cases. And it looks like they've fixed that. So there's apparently a situation where you could not activate Function Gyro again to finish enemies if they've previously tried to finish somebody by their person and also activated Function Gyro.
Hallelujah. Yeah, that was a bug.
So that's fixed.
That was a major bug. You have not seen Season 9 or 10. Actually, no. Season 9 I think was okay, but most of Season 10... Scrappers, I mean, they're 1 in 18 as a demo now, but Scrappers have been pretty PO'd because one of their core mechanics has not been working, seriously. Like, not very well. It's been bugged, 50-50. So, I think that there is still... The devs talked about this. They said there's a chance that the bug can still happen, but it's a very edge case scenario again now, which is what it was during Heart of Thorns, so people should be happy again. But that alone, guys, that brings a lot of Scrappers back. That alone.
Yeah. And another little bug change that is going to be good for not scrappers, but people in general. They apparently reactive lenses, the cooldown, it went on cooldown when like there was a disabling attack on them, but they had stability, so they didn't need it to go to be used.
Yeah, gross.
So yeah, but now that's fixed. Very nice. And also this net shot change, it says fixed a bug that prevented players from being able to fire this skill at targets behind them. I thought that I didn't think that was a bug. I thought that they had made a change in a previous balance patch to make them not able to shoot behind them.
Wow, I completely missed that. That's crazy. Yeah, that adds a lot more worthwhile utility to rifles. So if I face away from a target, I can throw the net shot while running away from them now, can I?
Yeah.
Instead of it just cancel casting. It looks like my character still turns around. It doesn't just fly out of my bum. But
it should.
Yeah, oh no, it does fly out of my bum. It actually does fly out of my bum. That's crazy.
Awesome.
I guess they've thrown immersion to the wind to give rifle more utility. Funny though, because I mean, rifle's already so dominant in PvP right now. Everyone's on rifle right now. Everyone. There's a few. I mean, some of these scrappers might be on hammer because they got the barrier stuff and whatever. But wow.
Yeah. Yeah, and they haven't really increased the other options for. I guess only for Hollowsmith. They haven't really increased the sword stuff this patch. So it's not like they're going to choose that necessarily over the rifle if they already like the rifle. Funnily
enough, one of the things... PvP balance is so hard to talk about. One of the things keeping sword in check, truly, has been the dominance of Scourge. So depending on where Scourge lands this patch, we might see more swords coming out as well.
Good point. But they did, I guess this was a big problem for Hollowsmiths in PvP on Warfield's World. They did have a lot of damage, and they have nerfed the damage on Hollowsmiths pretty hard, actually, this patch.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so auto attack, the first auto attack reduced by 40%, Hollow Leap reduced by 17%, Corona Burst. You get half the might stacks from it now.
Yeah, solo might going down.
Also, the trait that gave you stability with the Corona Burst is it's only when you hit things, so you can't like stack your stability when you're coming into a fight anymore. You have to be in the fight.
That change there, by the way, has been pretty much universally acclaimed. Really, really nice change. Skill-based hollows who are really paying attention, being careful, they'll be able to get their stab off and do all right.
For sure.
And there's more counterplay to it now as well. It's a really, really nice change that.
Yeah, they've again reduced the damage on Minesweeper.
Okay, so I want to talk about, what do you think about that?
I think that, well, okay, there were already people switching to Static Discharge because of the original Minesweeper nerf.
Are you asking me that?
No, I'm telling you.
Well, some people, yes, but a lot as well have gone into Purity of Purpose builds and protection spammy anti-corrosion plating builds. So, yeah, I mean, it's not some people. It's basically everyone had moved off of this. Nearly everyone had moved off of Minesweeper.
Exactly.
It didn't need an extra kick in the teeth. There were a couple of people who still were on it. But honestly, the change from the previous balance with boots was enough. This is an overreaction. This is listening to early forum QQ and reacting to it. It was honestly okay. It was better than okay. If they had left Minesweeper, there would have been a valuable explosives build. There would have been a valuable tools build of Static Discharge. There would have been valuable inventions, valuable alchemy supplementing these builds. Perhaps both elite specializations. I'm telling you now, right? If they didn't overdo this nerf, Engineer, in terms of specialization representation, would have been the most balanced thing that's ever been in Guild Wars 2, because all of the specializations would have seen a look in one way or another in different builds. It would have been beautiful.
They also reduced the damage. They also reduced the damage on the vent exhaust, the dodge on the Hollowsmith thing. So they've
and aim-assisted rockets went down this patch, if I remember rightly.
Yeah, well, that's not crazy, though.
Well, it's just all of it over. It's all focused on explosives up there. Well, not the vent exhaust, but still, man alive.
It's a huge power damage nerfs across the board for Hollowsmith builds.
Which makes them a bit more. It's less that they're a team fight powerhouse now, as the explosives builds were with the resurrection potential, the cleave and whatnot. They're more pushed to sides, where they're going to be enacting in more long-term 1v1s. And,
they'll still be strong, because Hollowsmith does do a lot of damage, so they'll still be strong, but just not as strong.
They will be, yeah. And I mean, what they got in terms of alchemy and inventions was good. There's going to be a lot that Hollows will be able to do. Yeah. I'd still like to see a bit more diversity from the Grandmasters as well, by the way.
I feel like it'll definitely make some people take another third look, let's say, at Scrapper.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bit of a balance there as well. But, I mean, the playstyle of those two is so different. I feel like people will just go back to a different class altogether if they were enjoying Hollow, and now it feels too under... I'm not saying that Hollow's weak and it's going to be gone, guys. I'm just saying the specifics explosive variant didn't need to be nailed into a coffin dead. It was actually well-balanced, well-implemented, if anything, even slightly weak before the patch. And now they've done this, and there you go.
Interesting little change, last little change that I want to talk about. Across the board mortar kit buffs for some reason.
There were mortar kit buffs, were there?
Yeah, to like almost every skill. They all got
flat damage, wasn't there? There was
flat damage and reduced cooldowns on the things.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. That is kind of interesting.
I wonder what they're doing that for. Anyway, maybe
well,
World
people
vs.
weren't
World
running
gives
too
them a
much
ranged
more.
option.
They just weren't running much more, right? So I don't know.
Yeah,
1500 range option back for them. That's kind of cool. Yeah, I think you covered NG pretty well. Let's move on to Mesmer. Do we want to talk a bit about Mesmer?
Sure.
Okay, so Mesmer. I've actually been playing quite a lot of Mesmer recently. Mesmer, in my opinion, first of all, I'll say this, that through the previews for this patch, the developers didn't really talk about Mesmer much at all. Mesmer almost got through this patch without having a look at it at all. We all know that Mesmer had a big Phantasm change recently, big, core reworks and revamps. It has left Mesmer extremely powerful. I believe that Mesmer has not just one, but a couple of extremely dominant builds. Some of the most dominant builds in the entire game at the moment belong to Mesmer. And with everyone else, you'll notice that the general theme is dragging power down and bringing people more in line on this patch. So Mesmer was coming out of this the clear kings. At the last moment, the devs did reveal some Mesmer nerfs were going through. But I believe that it needs quite significant attention. I think that they got to be very careful not to make this just the ultimate godly jack of all trades, which is kind of what it is right now. There's a lot of paladin builds, there's a lot of demolisher builds, there's even some bursty marauder builds with greatswords that are extremely effective. So nerfs seem to hit both very well, actually, and I think that the devs have started, but it might not be enough. I have been playing since balance, and the build doesn't feel too different. So talking about mirages, first of all, Elusive Mind, this is a big change. You now get exhausted. This is the same change that happened with Daredevil on their dodges. Remember when they cleanse a mob, they get exhaustion, which means they can't get endurance anymore. Well, same on Elusive Mind now. You'll get exhausted if you use this for a stun break. This could be a cool change. You could play around this. I don't think the devs quite understand that people ran Elusive Minds for the Condi cleanse more than the break stun. Yeah. Because even without Elusive Mind, you can dodge while stunned.
Yeah, and you just won't get attacked while you're on the ground.
Yeah, so it's like the break stun allows you to instantly retaliate, but the damage mitigation was always there. So you might now just sort of face tank. It. Yeah, like it's kind of interesting. I think any thief mains that now see Elusive Mind get hit might be really wary of this, because we all know what happened to DP Thief after their thing. But I think that this might actually not be too shabby. There have been other changes. A lot of the might that you found on the sword builds has been nerfed. The might you get from Phantasmal Force has gone down. Might associated with Great Sword 5 has gone down. Sword 5 has gone down. The sustain you get, the recharges from the sword abilities has gone up. So just generally dragged down in the right places. I do actually think the devs hit the right places. Meanwhile, the bursty builds with the great swords also had nerfs. For example, the trait that was giving you 30% extra damage against someone who was stunned or not doing anything.
Right, yeah. That's
now gone down to 20% extra damage. So it's a full 10% off of everything. The Mind Rack, the Greatsword 4, the Mirror Blade, everything. And that's good. I think people underestimate how much that mental anguish nerf actually means. Mirror Blade itself had a 14% nerf. Jaunt...
Okay, so it's down to 10% in PvP and 20 in World vs. World.
No, that's... Oh, yeah. 10% in PvP. Yeah. That's exactly what it is. Okay. So it's pretty good, I think, honestly. They have nerfed the right things. I think that build will still be extremely powerful, the burst build. But as a burst build, it's kind of limited in its capacity to carry anyway when you really actually get high end. So it's not the worst thing in the world. A lot of people talking about the Jaunt nerf as well. Jaunt had its flat damage halved. And people are like, isn't that pointless? I actually think that was kind of important. The Demolisher, Paladin builds and stuff, quite often you were finishing people off with a Jaunt. Yes, seriously. and that's going to be a little bit rarer now. Overall, I don't think that this was shaved as hard as it should have been. I think this got the treatment, the comparative treatment that I thought Fresh Air Ellie should get. You know, a bit of a refinement down, but nothing too major. While this needed a big nerf. Like, they sort of got their wires crossed there, I think, a little bit. But yeah, that's Mesmer. I think right now Mesmer's going to be really strong this next thing, because they are far too powerful 1v1ers, far too effective in team fights for a class that can rotate as obscenely fast as this can, and they have a portal on top. It's nuts. So, and
I guess you already talked about Bountiful Disillusionment with the Might stacks.
Yeah, just generally, a lot of the places you found Might is going down, guys. So there you go.
Okay. All right.
The stab got nerfed a little bit as well, which, by the way, was important, but again, probably just not enough. That's my general feel with it. What one do you want to do next, Boots?
I guess I could do one. Let's go up down to Ranger.
Ranger. Oh.
Ranger.
Ranger. Is that French for Ranger, is it?
I don't think so, but
let's say it is.
That's how you would say it. Yes, it is. It is. It's the French Ranger.
Okay, so what do you feel is going on here then?
So again, some decent, but I mean, Ranger in general, just it's fun when they get bug fixes, because there's always some weird bug fixes with bugs with Ranger. They got some good ones. For example, actually one that will be very impactful, I think, is not necessarily good for a Ranger. They might not like this. Supportive pets. Okay. So this has fixed a bug that caused supportive pet effects on merged soul beasts to affect the Ranger rather than their allies.
Wait, what? Really?
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't even know that.
So the supportive pets apparently, okay, I'm still trying to understand exactly what this means. Apparently the buffs from supportive pets, like a supportive pet gives you like I think vitality and or healing power and outgoing healing, but it's incoming healing, and so it was affecting the Ranger. The Ranger was getting extra healing.
Yeah. When
they were merged to themselves and wasn't giving it to their allies. So now this is no longer on the Ranger, so the self-heal for the Ranger is going to go down.
I'm trying to find a supportive pet here on my UI. Here you go, supportive. Vitality and healing increase per target. Okay. Yeah, I don't know.
So it's a little weird. It's a little weird.
It's so odd because it feels, just through its mechanics, it feels like it could be so many things. It's always really hard to predict exactly what they're going for. For PvP, I'm not sure what this really affects, though, to be honest. No one's really running supportive soul beasts.
Yeah. Anyway, so apparently supportive pets were supporting you when you were in soul beasts rather than your allies.
Right.
And also another thing, rugged growth reduced the heal when you have protection on you by 50%. That's a little less sustained for your soul beasts. And then you have quite a lot of Druid nerfs.
Yeah, Druid nerfs, baby. Bring them on, I say.
So yeah,
Druid's a great 1v1er, by the way.
Yeah, you talk about it.
Druid is a great 1v1er. It, along with Spellbreaker, are the kings of the side nodes at the moment, of nice, long, meaty 1v1s. They own those nodes. They're very well balanced amongst one another. Warrior comes out on top in terms of aggression, but Druid has a bit more ability to sustain and peel away from +1s that can come on them. So there's a nice balance. So if these guys get nerfed, the idea is build diversity, right? So if Druid comes down, Spellbreaker has to come down with it. But if both come down, suddenly you start seeing a lot more builds being viable because they can actually compete in these 1v1s. Reapers, Sword Weavers, lots of different builds. I mean, like Great Sword Reapers, right? There's lots of builds that start getting a look in edgewise as soon as Druid's potency and Spellbreakers just comes down a notch. But they have to come down together.
Yeah, because you have to be able to kill one of these Druids or one of these Warriors if you are trying to do these side node things.
Yeah, if you can't, it's a very binary decision of, oh, that's not going to be meta then. It's really quite simple, actually.
And the problem is the Druids were so survivable, so are the Warriors, and so hopefully these Druid nerfs, so they nerf Celestial Avatar, they increase the cooldown to 20 second in PvP.
That's a huge one. Yeah. So the CA getting back in, that's one of the bigger individual changes, definitely.
They Seed of Life is no longer a 1 second cooldown, it's a 3 second cooldown, so that's a lot less healing. Rejuvenating Tides reduce the base healing by 15%.
Well, that's their cleanse, isn't it? The Seed of Life one, that hits their cleanse quite hard, right?
Yeah, and Solarbeam is the staff auto, obviously. I mean, I think they nerfed the damage on that a while back, but they nerfed it again, another 17% down.
They also have a trait nerf, which means they would be applying poison when they're at full health. That has a longer ICD, so they don't get that. So anyone who loses value on their passive heals in the 1v1s or whatever, they get that a lot less because there's less poison rolling around.
Yeah, and then they reduced might stacking overall for them. Like, Grace of the Land is only 2 stacks of might instead of 3. Fortifying Bond, heal is 1, reduce the the duration of the might that it gives, put to 5 seconds instead of 10 seconds. Fresh Reinforcement also reduced.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of might generation from the Druid.
And here's
Self-might.
Here's the other thing, right? Like, these are double dips, guys. Every time you hear a nerf on the Druid, it's a double dip because it hits their pressure and it hits so might, especially, like, it's on the pet as well, right? But also their CA, the CA that they get from that. So it might look like too little or too much to you, but bear that in mind as well, because really it can swing quite heavily on Druid's balance just because of that. So the less damage they do, the less sustain they get in some weird ways as well, right? Because it gets them in and out of their form quicker.
Yeah, but they did increase the might stacking capability of the axe auto attack, which I guess is something.
Some people have been running axe. And there you go. So I mean, do you think that the Druid stuff is over the top?
I'd have to see, but I was annoyed enough with Druid to begin with that I don't think it's over the top.
Well, I think this is very much a situation where most Druid players I see think it's over the top. Most people I see who aren't Druids love it. That's just going to be the way it goes, I suppose. The other thing
I think my favorite thing about this nerf, all of these nerfs from Ranger, is the Signet of a Stone change.
Hell yes, my man. Tell me about it.
So Signet of Stone used to be 80-second cooldown, but it was like so abnormal. It was 6 seconds of dealing no damage to the person.
6 seconds.
6 seconds. So they reduced.
And that's not decap value, by the way. This is the same as Endure Pain.
Yeah. So they reduced the cooldown of this, instead of 80 seconds, it's down to 40 seconds. So it's cut in half. So that's better. But they reduced the duration from 6 seconds down to 3 seconds. So it brings it right down in line with basically all the other like invulnerable traits and things. And makes it actually, it's not bad for a Ranger necessarily, because having it up every 40 seconds, it'll be good because they'll be able to actually like use it to counteract certain bursts more often. But
they also get the passive back quicker.
Exactly.
With the half cooldown, you get the passive back up. A little bit of extra toughness quicker.
Exactly. It's just that 6 second duration was just like ridiculous.
There's 2 levels to this, right? There's 2 levels to why this is good. And one of the actual fun things about fighting Druid at the moment is watching for the Signet and getting them to pop it, and then like when you're playing a skirmisher, knowing when you can take the plus or not, and when you're in a 1v1, your goal isn't even necessarily to beat them, it's just to get them to pop their Signet, so that a plus will then come in later. And all that stuff's fun, but that will all be preserved. What I mostly like about this is, first, 6 seconds is just frustrating to play against, frankly. It's just frustrating to play against. But second, it almost just affects how the Druid can play, right? Because now they just have to be a little bit more careful. If they can resustain it quick enough, if they can sustain after having popped that, say they get plus, they pop the Signet, if they can then actually keep healthy for it to come back, they're more likely to be able to do that in the long term. So it's a buff and a nerf, but what it actually does is it tools the game into a place where roaming around and bursting on sides is a little bit more fun. Yeah. And I think that's what really matters, to be honest. So I'm happy with this change. Really happy. 6 seconds was obscene. I think 3 is the max.
Yeah, I think so
the game
too.
should go to.
And it's just like, now I might not do slash dance when I see Signet Stone get popped.
Yeah, but here's the thing. This is where like the warrior balance comes in. Warrior was already doing quite well, right? But Druid could like stealth and super speed off and resustain and hold these pluses with the Signet and get off the node eventually. It could do all of those things, and that's how it really had a good look in anyway. It had its own it was a distinct sort of version of a side noder. With all these changes and the Signet change, it loses a little bit of that pointedness to its flavor of side noding, and I'm just scared that I'll see the Druids go completely. I don't particularly enjoy fighting them, but I want as much variety on sides as possible.
Absolutely.
I don't want to see Druids lose every single fight to a Spellbreaker now. I don't want to see them lose every single fight to maybe some other side noding builds too, like freaking Sword Weavers and whatnot. Yeah. I don't want to see them go that low down.
Yeah, hopefully they nerf Spellbreakers as well then.
Well, yeah. So, who do we talk about next? Let's go
I
to
think
another
it's
class.
your turn, and you have Guardian, maybe?
Necro. I think Necro. Let's do Necro.
Okay.
So, we were just talking about sides. The other, obviously, big part of Conquest at the moment, guys, is the team fight, the mid fight. And so, here I have a Reaper. I guess I'll put onto... Don't judge the fashion wars, people watching the footage. Do not judge my exploded pillow fashion wars here. So, yeah, Scourge Firebrand. This really defines the team fight at the moment. You got the Scourge doing massive damage, but needs his support to stay there. You got the Firebrand, does basically no damage, but keeps the Scourge alive. It's clear, as much as you might be bored of experiencing the same style of mid-fight over and over again, it's very clear, it's well defined. I like Conquest when it's in that place, when skill balance is in that place. All the devs need to do is just rein Scourge down a little bit, so that it's not quite the powerhouse in team fights compared to others. So we can see some other big team fighting powerhouses get a look in as well. I believe during the Heart of Thorns days, I've been told like Power Rev was kind of in that position, but you never see Power Rev in that anymore because it's just completely outclassed. So I actually like Scourge, what it brings, its style, but it is a little bit too strong. And the only other thing as well is Scourge is a bit notorious for being easy to play at the moment, and you don't want your ultimate team fighting playmaker to be an easy build, really. Like, if it can be a nuanced build, something to people to be really hyped about getting good plays on, I think that's a good sign. Yeah, people will, and perhaps rightly so, say that Scourge is just quite spammy.
Right.
So, those are the two things I'd wanted to suggest. Just rein its power down a bit. Let other team fighters get a look in. Over time, again, trend in that direction and make it a bit less spammy.
And?
That's exactly what they did, man.
Ooh.
That's exactly what they did. I'm really happy with this. Basically, all your F abilities, slightly longer cooldowns now. And some of you guys might look at that and say, oh, that's terrible. That's such a lazy way to balance. It's not a lazy way to balance. That's exactly how you increase the skill floor for the build, but keep its potential intact, all right? This just punishes people who randomly push Desert Shroud before it's being used at an important moment. It just makes the build a little bit more worthwhile in skillful hands, a little bit worse in unskillful hands, which I think is good generally.
But what do you think about, because Desert Shroud, increasing the cooldown from 20 to 30 seconds, what do you think about the fact that that is a much longer cooldown, because it's only up for 6 seconds, so it's very different from every other Shroud.
Oh, you mean like in terms of consistency? I don't really care about parity between those, to be honest. I just want to make sure Scourge is in a good place, and the other kits feel so different anyway. I don't know whether they need to be compared on those terms. Okay. But yeah, I do think that the only other way they could have done this with the F abilities, by the way, is rebalancing life force, because it can feel like a bit of a non-mechanic sometimes. It depends what kind of a game you're in. But you know, in a weird way, nerfing life source gains forces people to run soul reaping. It forces people to change stuff up a little bit here. I don't actually think what you're looking at, by the way, on my build right now, guys, is a real build, so don't judge it too heavily. I was messing about with Reaper stuff. So yeah, I like that side of stuff. There is another thing though. Scourge does get a lot stronger in other ways. Obviously, baseline, there's less heals and things going around post-patch. So they may be just more dominant because of that. The res stuff, so Well of Blood, increase the base heal, increase the healing per pulse. It's insane. Wow. So the blood stuff actually really makes them very potent. And a bug fix. Now, Shade Obstruction.
Oh, yeah.
This is something that people in PvE have been complaining about, okay? And that's fair, right? It's frustrating in PvE. And then in World vs. World, right? If you shade up on a wall to try and knock someone off and you can't cleave them, maybe that's annoying. It depends on your perspective on how World vs. World defending should be and blah, blah, blah. I don't want to get into a discussion on that. For PvP, though, this Obstruct thing is like one of the things that held Scourge in check. Being able to LOS the Scourge by like going behind a rock or something when you were fighting them was huge, was really important. And now you can't. You can't LOS it anymore. The only LOS that matters is the Scourge's line of sight to his own shade. So anyone standing behind... This is really worrying to me. Scourge actually, especially Blood Scourge as well, they're kind of interesting team fighters in that if they're in a 1v1, they can hold themselves on sides against a lot of matchups. Yeah. And that just goes well up on any map like Forest, for example, Legacy with side nodes where there's a lot of kiting potential. Scourges can do stuff, man, now. And I don't know. That's going to be an interesting change. Do I think Scourge is dead after this? Absolutely not. Not with the blood changes.
Not with
absurd.
Not with the obstruction change, because that's going to add a lot of play for Scourges to know exactly where to position things properly, to get things that are trying to hide from them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it removes play from their opponents. So, yeah, I think Scourge is fine. And generally, I like the changes. There's some iffy-ish stuff in there, though. But, yeah, there you go.
Was there anything else
Scourges are a bit more... Scourges are a little bit more squishy just because their supports are a bit more squishy now as well. So, you know, it all goes down. Okay. But, yeah, sorry, what was that last thing you said?
I was just wondering if there was anything else besides the cooldown nerf that
there's lots of, by the way, guys, obviously on the video there's lots of other changes. These are just sort of the highlights that I really wanted to talk about. Is there something you wanted to point out?
No, I'm just checking it out.
There will probably be some little things as well, but really the cooldowns are the major aspects. All right, so let's go on to the next. What class do you want to give us next?
I guess I'll do Thief.
Thiefy weefy.
All right, so Thief, not too much crazy happened. They nerfed dagger auto attack. They nerfed sword auto. They nerfed sword in general, actually. A lot of the power damage is reduced, not too heavily, like only 15% and 14% for those two things. So I guess they're trying to encourage using other skills as a thief instead of just auto attacking all the time. It'll be fine, I guess.
Yeah, refining sword down's alright, because sword was very, very much sort of the favored thing for a while now.
Yeah. So Larcenous Strike also reduced the damage on that one. That was a lot of the more annoying skills had a lot of damage to them as well. Like, so Larcenous Strike with Pulmonary Impact as well, that got reduced by 29% damage. Also, this is all in PvP World vs. World. And they also, I mean, the only other thing that's really interesting, but not that interesting, is they buffed some underused healing skills, like Scalp Venom. They buffed it kind of significantly.
Oh, yeah, I remember that, actually. Yeah, Scalp Venom gets a buff, doesn't it?
Yeah, so 25% per hit extra healing.
I mean, no one's going to run that.
No, still nobody's going to run it. But Hide in Shadows, they might. They increased the healing by 15% on that. People will use that, probably.
And by the way, even with the Skelk thing, like, it doesn't matter if this one patch, it doesn't mean people are going to suddenly start using it. It's just, you know, a small buff for something that's never used is never going to be a bad change. Yeah. You know? Yeah. Doesn't need a massive amount of discussion, just throw it in there.
Hey, and maybe since Mentor's Amulet's gone, Magi's Amulet's gone, and
do not suggest a support thief.
The Guardians can't handle it anymore.
Oh my god. What else have you got for us as well? Is that about it?
That's about it. I mean, there's a lot of small changes to reductions of time reductions or increases. Like the pain response and instant reflexes are a huge increase to cooldowns. Like pain response, for example, 16 seconds it used to be. It's now up to 40 seconds in PvP. This is PvP only, but that means like you're gonna have. It used to be a very good skill to remove some damaging conditions. A very good trait to remove some damaging conditions, but now at 40 seconds, I don't know. It's tough to. You're gonna have
justify.
Yeah, you're gonna have some hard times against conditions nowadays with a thief, probably.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think just because like people will say the dagger auto chain, you know, we need that to cleave or whatever. I think you end up resorting to short bow more often than not for the choking gas. Obviously, both apply the poison, and then the clusters over the body is good. I don't know. I don't think that thief is like down and out at all. I think that addressing the balance between sword and dagger was nice. There was a change they wanted to put through, which was a Heartseeker buff, which I was actually really looking forward to. I like meaty Heartseeker plays. I like rewarding people who use that at low health thresholds. But as far as I understand it, it was reacted to very negatively on the forums. I think generally people are really like finicky and scared of thief buffs.
Yeah.
The general perception I think out there from the more casual people is that thief is a lot stronger than it actually is. So they always struggle to get the buffs in. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think Thief will have its place. Thief is a lot like Fresh Air Ellie and many other builds in that sort of style, right? Where that sort of +1-y area where they're just better because the game is deadlier. You don't need it listed formally in that section.
Yeah.
They're better because you don't have so much other stuff
You don't
rolling
have a
around.
Magi Amulets running around anymore. So.
You're not always going to run into a 6-second Signet of Stone, right?
Right.
Like that is a buff to like DP, even though DP doesn't, formally view it on the board.
And
for example.
who knows? We might see. Well, we probably won't actually see some DDs now because of Cloak and Dagger got changed.
Well, I mean, Sword Dagger though.
Sword Dagger also. Yeah, there you go.
But yeah,
that's it.
I guess we'll go to Rev. Am I doing Rev? I guess I'm doing Rev.
I think you're doing Rev. It's an
I
easy
forgot
one.
Rev was on my list today. Oh God, what do we actually have to say about Rev? Do I?
Did you
even have
not
a Rev?
look at Rev? Oh my
No, I
goodness.
do. I did look at Rev. Right, so my assessment of Rev before this patch is this. It needs buffing in almost every single area to have a place at all. Revenant as a class compared to the other classes is struggling. Renegade as an elite specialization is struggling. The only thing that's close to Renegade really is Berserker in terms of like lack of use in PvP right now. We really need something for this class, in my opinion. It needs substantial buffs in all areas. It's a long way from Ventari being an actual non-meme support. It's a long way from Malix being a good Condi pressure. It's a long way from being a side nodey duelist. It's a long way from being a team fighting powerhouse. It's nothing.
It's a long way from Tipperary.
Now, by the way, Rev is better than most people think it is, but it needs help. All right, so what have the devs done? Well, they've gone with Carla Scorch Razor buffs, which is very interesting to me. Carla is one of those things where it's like, Renegade is really bad, and it's partly because the legend itself offers like nowhere near the utility that like Glint does. Glint gives you a freaking damage reverse, right? Glint gives you reveal. Glint gives you a massive knockback. Glint gives you protection that you can pulse your allies. Glint is insanely cool, right?
It's good.
What does Carla give us? Well, spirits that can be cleaved and killed. We go over this every time on Balance with Boots. In truth, if Carla was meta, I just want people to imagine for a second, if Carla was meta, I think the game would be really ugly. I think there would be real visual noise issues. I think it would feel like the petting zoo meta is back. I don't actually think people would enjoy it that much. So philosophically, Carla might actually be at odds with the PvP experience.
Scourges are basically Carla.
Scourges are sort of similar in a way, yeah. So that's kind of how I feel. As bad as Carla is, I mean, I'd like to see some Renegade builds that maybe don't run Carla, but as bad as Carla is, I'm kind of not too upset that it's not got an amazing place, right? Kind of. But the devs seem to disagree. They've buffed Carla, and they are substantial buffs. They basically doubled Razor Claw's Rage here, because they doubled the duration of all of its bleed pressure. Okay. So it's just straight up double damage if you're landing in that. Which is a huge change. You know, if they'd listed that not as 2 to 4 seconds, but 100% more bleed over time, it's kind of nuts.
And if they listed that as PvE as well, that would have been nuts too.
Yeah, so Ice raises Ire as well. The flat damage on this went up by 24%. We get no valid path to target, which is still a problem with this, which is hilarious. But so, I mean, they've what was the other one they did? Those were the two main buffs for this actual legend, I think. And then there were other changes to Rev. So Jarlis had a lot of like energy improvements. Whenever you see an energy improvement to Jarlis, what you're actually looking at is a Renegade buff, because it allows you to access your F3, F4, F2, 3, and 4 better. So the hammers you can maintain better now. The taunt you can do without it actually costing so much energy. Like, look at how little energy the hammers cost now, guys. That's to allow you to use the siege and stuff and not feel terrible. I think it does have more play. The Jarlis Heal as well actually cleanses 5 Condis now, which is a substantial improvement. And kind of helps round out what Renegade could do, because half of the problem is Renegade just doesn't have enough cleanse. Like, that's one of the things that really punishes Rev in general at the moment. So all of that together, are we going to see lots of people doing it? I think it is more of a possibility in the world of joke builds now, but I don't think we'll see it being seriously played, and I'm not sure if I want it to be seriously played here. I must be honest.
It doesn't look like there's anything too impactful that would make it played too much in PvP.
Yeah, I mean, some people will argue that what actually needs to happen with this is a fundamental change to how these skills work. Like, no matter how many token buffs you put on the damage, the spirit is still going to get CC'd or killed, right? So I don't know whether I agree with that necessarily, because I like the idea of sort of a zoo that's CC counter zoo. I kind of like that idea. Maybe there's a way they could do it. But yeah, this patch alone, I don't think we'll see too much change. And again, people can maybe fight me in the comments if they think that this does deserve to be meta for PvP. I guess it depends what you think visual noise is. But I can tell you, summoning all these spirits on the nodes at once is pretty gross. I promise, guys.
So, besides, there only seems to be 2 buffs to the spirits: the Razor's Claw's Rage and Ice Razor's Ire, right?
Yeah, it's just their substantial buffs, and then the rest, like again, it's just lots of energy improvements on the rest of the.
So, but that might be interesting though, because you could still run Renegade without the legend.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I'd rather see. So let's look at the traits. Let's look at short bow, and let's improve some of that.
Yeah, but Coalescence of Ruin for World vs. World got a nerf, which is good, because that's always been like the pirate ship meta of hitting people from really far away and like one-shotting them with the Coalescence of Ruin.
You're not a fan of Coalescence of Ruin? Of pirate shipping, by the way?
I don't mind it. It's just a lot of damage to get one-shot by with one attack, basically.
That's fair enough.
And the fact that it's nerfed again, it was nerfed previously, but it's nerfed again, I think it's fine. I mean, it's not a ridiculous nerf, so it's not going to like ruin Revenants for War vs. World. I think it's the right
This skill is probably one of my favorite animations in the whole game.
That's cool.
I actually love this skill, like flavor-wise. This is a really cool skill. Hammer in general, flavor-wise, is badass on Rev. Look at this. So cool.
Throwing hammers.
Sorry.
Spectral hammers everywhere.
By the way, guys, there were a couple of little Malix changes. And again, maybe this is... Because, I mean, when we see Malix, we can think Renegade as well because of the Condi pairing. So the attribute buff you get from Embrace the Darkness is now 15% instead of 10. So I don't know. On the right amulet, who knows? Who knows?
Yeah.
If that had been doubled to 20, I would really be sitting up right now. I really would. Who knows what that actually means? And then there was another thing. Banish Enchantment now rips 3 boons instead of 2. Which is kind of good because a lot of boon applicators in the game, they're popping 3 on. It's like Fury, Might, and Swiftness kind of thing. So getting the 3 to rip all of them at once instead of like leaving 1 randomly up is kind of nice as well. So I think 3 is a good point for a skill dedicated to ripping boons. 3 is like the low end of what it should really be doing, I think.
Yeah, I think they've done that to a bunch of different rip boon skills in this patch, actually. Like in Warrior. For example, I could do Warrior right now.
Oh yeah, let's go to Warrior then. Let's do it. So, the other big side noder.
Okay, the other side meta. So there are a lot of changes to Warrior as well. Again, all of those passive things that annoy everybody. Defy Pain, Last Stand, Shrug It Off, Dead or Alive. Huge increase to their cooldown. So that is going to affect Warriors as a tanky thing a good amount, actually.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that might do a good amount besides all the other stuff you're going to have. So there's a small nerf to the damage from full counter, reduced the overall damage for dagger stuff. Basically, almost every dagger skill got nerfed by 15 to 20%.
Right.
And the stun break from actually a lot of spellbreaker stuff got nerfed. So the stun break has a 40-second cooldown now. The Featherfoot Grace, it's called. Again, I told you about the Rampage being down to 90 seconds, so I kind of want to make a build about that.
That's a buff, definitely.
You mentioned that because Defy Pain has an increased cooldown to 90 seconds instead of 60, they might be choosing other traits in that spot. But the only other trait is the mace trait. That's
but there are mace buffs. People have speculated that a core warrior with rampage and maces that runs Sundering Mace instead is.
I mean, I gotta tell you, yeah, there's 2 new offhand mace buffs, which might.
Yeah, both got buffed, right?
Yeah.
Both offhand mace skills,
which aren't that bad actually. Like
I really like the warrior changes, by the way, because like there's a lot of nerfs this patch. But there's a lot of warrior buffs to just weird areas of warrior that nobody runs right now, right? Like,
because nobody uses offhand mace really. They changed Crushing Blow, increased the damage by 25%, and made it 15 stacks of vulnerability on one attack.
Yeah, that's so much vuln just for landing 1 hit.
Exactly.
It's insane.
And then they increased the knockdown from Tremor to 3 seconds from 2 seconds.
It's a 3-second knockdown.
3-second knockdown from like so far away.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mostly remember Mace from doing it in dungeons years back, right?
Yeah.
Mace offhand.
But
yeah, I don't know. I kind of like it. So you might find core warriors running that, the Mace trait, Rampage. It's all CC, disruption, very aggressive, kind of like... And I mean, they'll have fun beating the hell out of Scourges as long as they've got the defense they need to be able to do it. I'll tell you that much. 3-second knockdown on Trimmer. Jesus.
They also, for some reason, pretty substantially increased the power damage to sword main hand.
Yeah, because sword is like hybrid. That's the thing, right?
It's hybrid,
like,
yeah.
And hybrid weapons have traditionally not worked very well. Let's be clear.
Yeah, true. But yeah, they did everything except for the final thrust. So the main huge damage thing from the sword main hand is not increased damage.
Yeah, that's a shame. I would have liked Final Thrust to get a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Final Thrust is one of those really satisfying skills to land, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And then
but
finally,
that's true for as well. Berserker got that, right? As well. Berserker got
Flaming
the
Flurry.
F1 on sword main hand, right?
Yeah, so Flurry and Flaming Flurry got increased, 71% increase and 92% increase. But that basically means is they're both going to do the same amount of physical damage now. And it's still not that much. But who knows?
Yeah, I mean, Berserker really deserves as much discussion as Renegade, in my opinion, right now. It really got hit hard leading out of Heart of Thorns, and it really is a bit non-existent right now. And I know a lot of people saw a lot of Berserkers last year, and they might be happy to see the back of them, but I think that they deserve a bit more of a spot.
Yeah.
These buffs probably aren't enough, but hey, who knows?
Yeah. And then finally, the last set of buffs are buffs to basically every shout.
Yeah, shouts, right?
Yeah,
and the good old Condi shout bow coming back, everybody.
Yeah, some of them are two of them are more interesting to me than the others. That is To the Limit.
To the Limit.
Now grants you and all of your allies 100 endurance. Yeah, so it used to be only 50, now it's 100. And then finally, for Great Justice. For Great Justice, adjusted might granted from 6 to 12 stacks in PvP in World Wars.
It's like the Blood is Power thing, right? It's crazy.
It's like the Blood is Power, but like you also have PS, right? So you'll give, with one ability, you give 24 stacks of might to your friends.
That's kind of cool. I didn't think about the phalanx strength synergy. I mean, are people gonna? That's kind of interesting.
Just one.
Well,
you press one button on like a 25-second cooldown or whatever it is, but with one traded 20-second cooldown. One button, all of your friends have like 5 seconds of 25 stacks of might.
And Fury as well on top.
And Fury, yeah.
Yeah, it's just not very long lasting, but wow.
No. But it's the 12 seconds is pretty long lasting. The 12 seconds
it's just a phalanx burst on top. Yeah. That's kind of crazy, actually. I hadn't thought of that at all. I wonder if there's something you can work there. There's fun buildcraft coming out of this. There honestly is.
Mm-hmm.
Man.
Yeah, and that's about it. But I think you've got one left.
Okay, and yeah, by the way, so a lot of this, like, will warriors be wrecking druids now that druids have lost so much might application? They've had the CA changes, they've had the signet change, and warriors have had their, significant nerfs to full counters and a lot of the spellbreaker-based stuff, dagger attacks and whatnot. How that will feel now post-patch is going to be fun to sort of look at. And so here's the really fun thing as well, guys. If both of them have been brought down in tandem, you may see Reapers being able to fight toe-to-toe with them with their greatswords. You may be able to see the Sword Weavers. You may be able to see whatever else. And that, again, that's just more build diversity, so it's good.
Actually, one thing that's annoying, I just realized, Vigorous Shouts, the reduced cooldown on the Shouts, is in the same place as Flying Strength, so you can't do that combo.
Oh. Well, you can't trait the Shout itself as well, but you can do
You can do the Fast Saint, but yeah, you can't make it reduce cooldown.
Okay, so then the last thing, guys, is the other half of the team fight, which is Guardian, your Firebrand support. Let me just get on one. I haven't played a Firebrand for a while now. But, so what I would say here is it's very similar to Scourge. It needs just tooling down a bit so that, I mean, it's fun and I like the idea of it being locked in place, but it's so, like, godlike. This isn't a Firebrand support that I'm on right now. It's so godlike that it kind of means it's almost a no-brainer to run instead of a Tempest or whatever else might seek to be a support that's out there. And there are potential other things. I just want a bit of build diversity for that team fight, right? I want to see sometimes a Tempest and sometimes a Firebrand. I want to see sometimes a Scourge or sometimes a whatever else, right? Mm-hmm. So that's why I want Firebrand to just be nerfed down. They did just that. Like, remember as well, previous balance with boots and the one before, the Firebrand nerfs were coming on fast and thick. They still are, guys. They're still toning it down, little by little. So, first of all, the F2, which is your primary heal kit. well, the epilogue, the one that increases healing efficiency to everyone else around you, that was 33% more benevolence before. It's now just 20.
Oh.
So that's been dropped. That means all your other heals are now 13% weaker across the entire board while under the Eternal Oasis. The F2, which was when I started playing Firebrand, 3 condies cleansed and heal for each condi and all this stuff. Well, they've reduced the healing from that as well by 33%. So that's pretty huge. The auto, which is your main sustain while you're in this tome, has also had a nerf by 17%.
Wow.
So just overall, the healing has gone down.
Yeah.
And this is good because it's on those terms that Tempest that really needs to be able to compete. And we'll talk about Tempest first, then we'll talk about bringing some of the other supports up afterwards, right? Tempest support has some other stuff going for it in Protection and Frost Aura and Shocking Aura that the Firebrand can't do. But yeah, so yeah, they've done that. That is actually it, though, for the support side, as far as I remember. That's actually really, really relevant. And we'll see how the mid-fights feel with no Magi's and with that extra little bit of a tone down on the healing capacity.
Right.
Then also, let's talk about other aspects of Guardian. What about Dragon Hunter, which is left in the, stinging a little bit since Heart of Thorns rolled out? What about some of these Core Guard builds? Well, they probably just need a little bit more damage, a little bit more pressure. I mean, the Core Guard builds I actually really like at the moment. I think they're fine. But DH, I'd like to see get a bit more pressure just to be able to stand up there. So the devs have added more damage in some places. Zealous Blade has got an increase from 5 to 10%. So that helps those style builds. And then the other thing they've done is Spirit Weapons. Didn't we see them improve those last balance with boots as well? Like the ammo on them or something?
Yeah, they reduced the
cast time?
Yeah, they reduced the cooldown, or like there was an 8-second internal cooldown on each cast of a few of them, and they reduced it to 1 second, and now they're reducing the overall recharge time as 2. That's
yeah, so the recharge time... Now, remember, these are ammo skills now, guys, right? So you can double them up and whatever. They are dropping the ammo recharge, so that's like double effective cooldown improvement.
I guess people still weren't using any of them after the last patch?
Yeah, people weren't. People still might not be using any of them. Maybe one day we'll see them supplement some of these builds that don't have too much of a look in. But don't laugh at that. I wouldn't say that don't laugh. I think that's actually good because it shows, the devs give it a bit of a tune-up. People aren't running it, fine. Give it another bit of a tune-up. Okay, fine. Give it another... And it's like, I know it's a joke when you see the devs keep doing little incremental buffs or something, but that's what good balance looks like, guys. It's not swinging one way to the other extremely fast. It's just slowly tuning stuff into where they should be and not forgetting about them. Not doing a tiny buff here in 2015 and then coming back in 2020. It's continuously doing it. And so I like that with the Spirit Weapons. Maybe one day we'll actually be looking at them and they'll be worth using.
I would say that these are going to be used before some of the other things they've done in incremental buffs too, because these buffs to them are pretty decent.
Yeah, so I mean, I just think they're quite low below the bar. I mean, you do hear sometimes people are like, "Oh, actually, I really like the Bow of Truth," or "Oh, actually, I really like the sword." I guess time will tell with what exactly they do. And there you go. That's the balance. I really like this patch. I think this is one of the strongest patches specifically for this area of the game I've seen in a long time. There could be unforeseen stuff. I might sound like a complete knobhead in a week when it turns out loads of stuff's broken. Yeah. It could be Mesmer is just so obscenely dominant over everyone else. A lot of this doesn't count for anything, which is my main fear right now. But I'm really happy with this, and I'm happy with what this patch actually
Me too.
what it says,
Me
to the people for this part of the game. It's really great. Do you have anything you think we didn't cover here, Boots?
No, I think we pretty much covered everything.
We did good.
I think we did good. But I think we did go over time a little bit.
Just a little. Look, but don't worry about that. Don't worry about that view timer. No, nobody's listening to that. It's fine. Look, it's fine. Okay.
Wait. What are we at? We tripled the time that we wanted to take.
Yeah, guys, we were going for a half-an-hour video. You'll notice as well, there's been very little banter and just casual chit-chat in this video. It's because, we have to keep moving. And even at that speed, we still go an hour and 20 minutes.
So should our main criticism for ArenaNet be your balance patches are too big?
Yeah, what was this? This was like a bonus patch.
What happened?
I mean, undersold, over-delivered, if you ever heard it, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Does that mean as well, if they consider this a bonus thing, does that mean that we get another full-fledged all 3 game mode one coming up
I think
within
so,
2 months.
but honestly, I hope like there's a few of these changes that are PvP and World vs. World only that I really wish were also PvE. Like especially like the Rampage change and the Tornado change. I wish those were in PvP as well, PvE as well.
Yeah, and I think that there's less need for it in PvE. That's sort of my thing with it. Like, it's not too interesting of a discussion to me because PvE has no desperate need for these things.
Yeah, but there's no reason for it
would
not
be
to
nice. Well, except just that it takes work to make sure that it's in properly and nothing's going to utterly break. Yeah. It's a bit like Shatterstorm, right? Like, that's actually a PvE environmental effect, and they need to check stuff like that. So, I mean, yeah, and the devs did say that some of this stuff, if it's successful and good, it will go into PvE. It's just going to be a matter of time for them to do it instead of trying to bundle it all in and all three at once. You know, be a bit more piecemeal about it, and I agree that philosophy, right? So, next patch, you might see a ton of this stuff. Basically, guys, next time you see Balance of Boots, and it's and we read out loud, oh, this has been unsplit from PvP and World versus World. Whenever you hear, oh, this has been unsplit, don't just roll your eyes and type Zs in chat and get bored. That's probably one of these awesome buffs that's just come to you in PvE. Yeah.
You know, so you just invited half of the audience to put Zs in the comment section.
Well, we'll see who actually remembers by the next Balance of Boots, shall we? So there you go, guys. Thanks very much for watching. You've been a brilliant guest as always, Boots, and we hope to see you on the very next one, I guess.
Yeah. Maybe like I'm more of a PvE. You're the PvP pro nowadays, so I was a little bit out of sorts for this one, but I think...
No, I think you did good.
Oh, yeah? Okay, good.
So we'll just wait for the next PvE one. You can do all the work.
That's what's going to happen, yeah.
It'll be great. We'll see you guys then.
See you later.
Oh, the only thing that annoys me now is editing this.